This is your 3-minute warning. 3 minutes until showtime. This is your 2-minute warning. 2 minutes until showtime. One minute. 1 minute until showtime. America Free Radio is about to go live.
You be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
The future is uncertain. I know this. Death is inevitable. I know this. But one thing is certain. As free men, it is our right to live unencumbered and in peace. And those times are quickly drawing to an end. And in these times, peace is certainly an illusion. And as the chains grow tighter, our ability to slip those chains increase incrementally with every passing moment. Inaction is no longer an option. It's time to raise our voices like a cacophony of thunder and lightning and tell the masters no more. This is Nighthawk, and I say, for myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because the freedom is slipping away.
And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains through the America Free Radio studios on Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported network in America. Climbing the ladder. Lots to go over tonight. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results will always be positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We are streaming live tonight on many platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, and DLive. So if you know any friends that have been to DLive, it's mostly like a gamer's platform, but podcasting is making the switch to DLive. It's a great platform for us. It's a great platform for you. So if you have a chance tonight and you're on some other platform, never been to DLive before, go to D, like letter D, live.tv, dlive.tv, and follow me. It could be cool. I'm under the category podcast. There's probably only 1 or 2 podcasts on tonight, so it should be very easy to find us. It's a great place to come and hang out. All right, let's get started. We have a lot to go over. So much happening in the news, and it's dynamic. Things are happening today. Things are happening this hour, and I'm going to try to keep you abreast of it and maybe give you a little glimpse into the future. The Biden crime gang is back in the news. We thought that maybe you knew everything, but a new Senate report released today. Told you this is happening right now. It was released today, and it concludes that former Vice President Sleepy China Joe Biden allowed his son, Hunter Biden, and other members of his family to enrich themselves through links with foreign companies and governments while he was in office. This didn't happen after. This was while he was a senator, while he was a vice president. This is why we call it the Biden crime gang. And by enrich, you have no idea how big this really is. We've alluded to it. We've hinted at it over the last year, but now the evidence is in. And I had a question, it was a debate question. Chris Wallace is going to moderate the debates in 6 days, right, on the 29th. And, do you really think it's going to be a debate? Really? You think there'll be 3 of them? Yes, no, 1. I think 1, yeah, maybe, because it's going to be mercy. And I've got some other things to share with you about what maybe that will be like in the debates and why it's working out the way that it is. But I have a question for Trump, if your staff is listening, because, Chris Wallace is going to ask sort of the question, and you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted, right? Which means Chris can't do anything about it. Got a hair, cat's been in the room. And you know what's going to happen. He'll ask the question, and it may be a softball, it may be a semi-hardball, it might be a curveball, and they will answer it for about 11 seconds, and then they're going to veer off and give their own answer. And Chris Wallace can't do, the Bill O'Reilly and interrupt and say, hey, you're not answering my question, pinhead. No. But what can happen is Trump can then redirect and ask Sleepy Joe a question. And this is the question I would ask Joe Biden. So, Joe, if you were president of the United States and you discovered a secretary of state or 2, maybe a sitting senator, maybe a couple of cabinet members who were laundering American tax money in a foreign country, and they got caught and they got indicted in that foreign country, would you let them go stand trial in that foreign country, or would you just let it go? Would you just not do anything? That's a great question, isn't it? Yes, I thought it was. Anyway, this funding mechanism has been operating for a long, long time, decades. And it may actually be the main reason why Obama chose Sleepy China Joe as his running mate. The report proves that the Obama administration was fully aware of and did nothing about the conflict of interest that was created when Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was appointed to the board of Burisma, a corrupt Ukrainian fossil fuel company. Now, Burisma is just one of many shell corporations and nonprofits that launder billions in U.S. taxpayer money through a criminal web of corruption to eventually squeeze money into accounts controlled by American politicians. John Kerry, John McCain, Hillary Clinton, just to name a few. And one big, slimy family of crooks. This is where the money came from. This is how they got rich while they were in office. You think they got rich off their Senate or Secretary of State salary? No. It was a money laundering scheme. Oh, a shell corporation. Somebody asked the question, what is a shell corporation? There are companies out there who will create a fully reporting, because there are all kinds of SEC, and in foreign countries there are also regulations for their markets, a fully reporting corporation. It has a name, it has an address, it has a registered agent, it has maybe some rudimentary assets, and it has registered stock. Maybe 100 million shares, maybe 500 million shares of registered stock. Now, it's never really done any business. It doesn't necessarily have any books of trading. What it does have are things called pink sheets. And these pink sheets are regular reports that have to be done, filed with these regulatory authorities, so the authorities know that it is a legitimate corporation. It takes a little bit of money to keep these shells alive. And what you really try to do is create some age on it. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years is golden. So if you're a law firm and you have built, say, 20 of these shell corporations, it's a fair expense to keep them current. But if you keep them current, keep all the paperwork right for 5 years, now you have a corporation founded in, let's say it's 2020 now, founded in 2015. No infractions, no violations, perfectly clean stock, ready to trade, ready to go. All it needs are two things: an asset to pour into the corporation to make it worth something, and an offering. We usually call that an initial public offering, or in some cases, a private offering. So this is how it's done. Now, what happens when you create these shells is they really don't have any value in and of themselves. They're more of a financial instrument, we call them. And what happens is these shell corporations, who may have a name like ABC, or they may have a name like Matilda or Matador or, Double B or something like that, they will merge, do a reverse merger into the company that has the assets or has the business. And magically, it will now be under a new name, like, say, Tesla Motors. That's the way Tesla became publicly trading. Did you know that? Tesla Motors was a private corporation until it did a reverse merger and got onto the public market where it could start to sell stock to make money. That's the way it was done. And there are lots and lots of corporations that do get their start this way. Now, there are hazards. The first and foremost hazard is what's called a naked short trader. A naked short trader will see what's going on, and what they will do is say, oh, Tesla stock is selling today for $23 a share. So what they'll say is, well, I'll sell that stock for $19 a share. Well, people will say, wow, it's worth $23. I can buy it at $19. Hell yeah. The trouble is that the seller of the stock doesn't own any stock. All you get is a paper ownership. Now, all's well and good as long as the stock actually goes down to $19 a share, or preferably 18 or 17. It's called a short. You're buying a short. The problem occurs when the stock actually goes up instead of down. If it goes up, guess what that seller has to do now? They have to produce the stock. They have to deliver the stock. And if they don't own it, they got to go buy it, which means they got to buy it off the market. And if they do at $23, it might go to 24, 25, 26, 36, 46. They lose their butts. And the people that bought their shares at $19 make a killing. It has happened. That's why Tesla exists today, because Elon Musk caught those short traders, Citigroup, with their pants down around their ankles, naked shorting the company, about 100 million shares. Oh, yeah, it cost them. It cost them about $1.2 billion plus fines. But this is the way it's done. Money is actually rolled into and rolled out of these corporations. Now, no one really cares where the money comes from. That is to say, they don't investigate too hard. But when the money comes out, guess what it is? It's clean. Yeah, that money that went in, dirty money, it was dirty, but when it comes out, it's nice and clean. Now, you'll take a hit for it, sure. That drug money or that human trafficking money or the U.S. taxpayer funds go into that corporation nice and clean, sort of, nice and dirty, sort of, and when they come out, they're nice and clean. Of course, $1 billion goes in, and at the end of the spigot, when you turn the spigot on to make yourself rich, maybe 80 million comes out. Well, yeah, that's a big overhead, isn't it? Because there are hands out all along the way. There are investigators and reporters, and there are SEC people. They're all on the take. They all get a piece of that money. They don't care. It's not theirs. It's yours. And guess what they're going to do next year? They're going to do it again and again. And that's what they did. They had created this system through the corrupt environment of Ukraine. It was world renowned. It was a place where you just don't get caught until Trump became president. Right. The report goes further than what was revealed during the impeachment inquiry last year. It presents email evidence that former Secretary of State John Kerry, whose stepson Chris Hines was one of Hunter Biden's business partners, was also aware of the conflicts of interest. It adds that Hunter Biden, his family, and business partner Devon Archer received millions of dollars from foreign nationals with questionable backgrounds. It notes that Hunter Biden went on a $100,000 global spending spree with James Biden and Sarah Biden after receiving money from a Chinese investor. And it adds that Hunter Biden appeared to have paid women linked to an Eastern European prostitution or human trafficking ring. He was involved on the money side of human trafficking. Yes. Now, don't forget the links to which they went to cover it up and prevent the loss of the money source. Remember Victoria Nuland? That's a name you should be familiar with. She's responsible for planning and executing the assassination of 100 Ukrainians to bring attention to the fake revolution they had started to oust then-President Viktor Yanukovych. The crime gang was sprung from prison, and then they ran their little operation until McCain was dead and the new President Zelensky was elected. Of course, corrupt ambassadors and bureaucrats tried to impeach Trump so they would not get caught, but they all got caught. It also notes the records acquired from the committees prove consistent, significant, and extensive financial connections among and between, guess who? Hunter Biden, James Biden, Sarah Biden, Devon Archer, and Chinese nationals connected to the communist regime and the People's Liberation Army, as well as other foreign nationals with questionable backgrounds. The report, presented by Senator Ron Johnson, who's a Republican from Wisconsin. By the way, Wisconsin's in play, just so you know, with the presidential election. I'll make the prediction right here. That President Trump is going to win all the states that he won before. Plus, I believe Virginia is in play because of what Governor Northam did up there. Wisconsin is in play, maybe possibly because of the fall of Michael Madigan. He's the hinge-pin of government corruption in Illinois. He's the Speaker of the House of Chicago. I believe Illinois is in play, and I'm going to make another prediction because I have good people on the ground and I have a good sense for what's going on. I think it could be possible, with a little p, Maybe not probable, but it is possible. Trump will win California. Think of the potential here. 55 electoral votes from California. Of course, President Trump will win, but worse, even better, is the Democrat Party will lose. That's a big difference. Because when the Democrat Party goes bankrupt after they spend all this money on this campaign, and it fails in a pile of corruption and lawsuits and indictments, and sorry to say there may be even some more assassinations, there have been a bunch so far, then it's going to be very difficult for them to come back. They may not come back in a generation. Anyway, Ron Johnson of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs and Senator Chuck Grassley, he's a Republican from Iowa, of the Senate Committee on Finance. It was launched in August of last year. That's how long it's taken them to get their subpoenas answered. This is prior to even the impeachment controversy. And as a result of the Henniges transaction, in which a company tied to the Chinese state had bought an American company that makes anti-vibration technology with military applications, one of the companies in the transaction was Bohai Harvest. It goes by the call letters BHR, a Chinese-funded investment company in which Hunter Biden actually owns a stake. This is how big the conflict of interest gets. Now, the reason I lay these complex foundational pieces for you is that you'll understand what's about to happen. You're going to hear about it in the news, and you're not going to pay much attention to it because you're doing something else. You're feeding the dog, you're driving your car, you're walking, listening to Sirius XM or something. But when these words pop up now, you're going to pay attention, because the report details examples after example after example of extensive and complex financial transactions involving the Bidens. And it notes that Hunter Biden was not the only Biden who cashed in on China Joe's vice presidency. It also notes that Hunter Biden enjoyed Secret Service protection during extensive trips abroad. Hunter Biden isn't afforded Secret Service protection. You paid for it. And that protection continued for months after he joined Burisma. Here's what that report concludes. The records acquired by the committee show that Hunter Biden and his family, they were involved in a vast criminal financial network that connected them to foreign nationals and foreign governments around the world. Hunter Biden and Archer, in particular, formed significant and consistent financial relationships with the corrupt oligarch Mykola Zlochevsky during their time working for Burisma, and their firms made millions and millions of dollars from that association, while Joe Biden, Sleepy China Joe Biden, was vice president. Oh yeah, and Obama knew everything. And the public face of the Obama administration's Ukraine policy was none other than Sleepy China Joe Biden. He was the guy. Made lots of trips over there, picked up the phone lots of times. We've heard some of the recordings. Let's see. Rosemont Seneca Thornton, an investment firm co-founded by Hunter Biden, received a cool $3.5 million in a wire transfer from Elena Baturina, who allegedly received illegal construction contracts from her husband, the former mayor of Moscow. There we go. Russia. Moreover, Archer's apparent receipt of money for a car from Kengiz Rakashev of Kazakhstan, while Vice President Biden was in Kiev, is especially concerning in light of the timing. And finally, Biden and Archer's work with Chinese nationals connected to the communist regime illustrate the deep financial connections that accelerated while his father was vice president and continued after he left office. Where's Biden? I mean, where's Hunter, by the way? Where's Hunter Biden? Anybody seen him or heard from him lately? I wouldn't. The report also notes that the vice president was made aware of the conflicts of interest and that Hunter Biden's Ukrainian role entailed, as was Secretary of State Kerry. Former Secretary of State Kerry's December 2019 denial of having any knowledge at all about Hunter Biden or Burisma is a lie. This report proves it. Kerry was briefed about Hunter Biden while he was Secretary of State, Burisma and Hines. The day after Burisma announced Hunter Biden joined its board, he knew about it. Additionally, Secretary Kerry's senior advisor sent him press clips and articles relating to Hunter Biden's board membership. So he knew, he absolutely knew, and he lied. This appears to be yet another example of high-ranking Obama administration officials blatantly ignoring Hunter Biden's association with Burisma. The reports, written by Republican majority on both committees, accuse Democrats of falsely leaking the investigations to foreign influence campaigns. Ironically, the report notes, relying on foreign nationals with an interest in influencing us, U.S. politics. Oh, yeah, that's how they meddled in the election. That's how the meddling in the 2016 election occurred. Hunter Biden spoke during the DNC, declaring that his father would be an honest president. Do you believe it? Do you believe that anyone with the last name Biden is going to be honest in politics? Hey, we're streaming live right now. YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, and DLive. So if you make your way over to dlive.tv, that's D, letter D, live.tv, search me out. Just put it on your podcast and look for, actually, it's 9BAA 2019. I can't change the name for, I think, another 10 days, but that's just the way DLive is. Search me out. You'll see this image right here because it's streaming right now live on dlive.tv. Same thing on Twitch. We have one viewer watching on Twitch. Could be Charlie. Charlie, is that you out there watching? And on Periscope, it's streaming on Twitter. And I don't get a feedback on those numbers, but there's a couple people on Facebook too. Hello out there. And don't be afraid to chat to me because it's going to show up. I have chat consolidation going so I can see everything that's going on, everybody out there. Warrior, nice to see you. Leanne, nice to see you. They had to have everyone know about the Bidens. Yes, well, you know, the fake stream news doesn't tell us much about that, Leanne. And so what happens is the people that need to know, which are the independents that haven't made their, quote, mind up on whether they're going to vote against Donald Trump or not, forget about voting for Biden. No one's actually doing that. It's a not Trump vote. What we want them to realize is that not voting for Trump is different than voting for Biden. If you're not going to vote for Trump, you know what? I can respect that. But then don't vote. Stay home. Don't vote for Biden. If you vote for Biden, you're voting for this criminal organization. There's a big difference in voting against somebody and voting for somebody. Okay? Let's see. Is Julesy out there too? I see her name. Somebody's talking to her. And Doug, good to see you out there. I don't trust Trump now, as he has silenced Assange with the help of Gresnell. It's Gresnell and Pompeo. I was strong donator for 4 years, so I've paid my admission price. I kind of agree with you. But, you know, you got to look at the facts about Assange. I always thought he was a great reporter because he didn't lie. He just put out what he got a hold of. That's, if you take a higher altitude look at what Assange has done, most of it has been designed to hurt the United States. Did the United States deserve hurting? Yeah, probably did. Because, you know, he doesn't believe states should have secrets. People can have secrets, but not states. But he didn't reveal the criminal activity so much of other nations whose information was a lot more readily available than ours. So just take a higher altitude look at it. I'm all for pardoning Assange. The fact that they've gone silent about it probably means something good is going to happen. Because if they were very vocal about it, it probably wouldn't happen. Too much politics surrounding it. So just have a little patience there, Doug. I have good faith in him. I think it's going to work out okay. Mona, I'm glad you're okay. I hope the weather's cooled off a little bit out there and you're not going to get burned up out there on the West Coast. Let's see what else we got out here. Lots of people in the chat room just trying to catch up with it. By the way, at the very bottom of the YouTube chat, you will notice a little square with a $sign in it. That is actually the top chat. And I have right now in front of me a top chat alert. It is programmed, but I've never actually seen it work, and I don't know that it is working. So if you should happen to, think about it, it could be that you might want to hit that top chat and contribute toward our efforts to make the expedition happen. I might see it. I might see this. And also the subscriber alert has been activated. So if anyone is out there and listening on YouTube and you have not subscribed to this program, or you see that somehow YouTube has unsubscribed you, you can always subscribe again, and you can hit that notification button. And don't forget to hit the like button while you're in there as well. That's a big help to us. All right, let's go on to the next story. Don Lemon. I really don't like finding myself talking about Don Lemon. Well, that first swallow is pretty loud on the mic, isn't it? But Don Lemon has gotten himself in some real trouble because he made a bomb threat on live TV. This is not good, Don. Not good. It's called terroristic threatening. You can't say stuff like this, okay? CNN's Don Lemon attempted to clarify his remarks about, quote, blowing up the entire system. But that's what you said, Don. That's what you said. And the problem when you say something like that we need to blow up the whole system, that's a bomb threat. You don't blow up the whole system with cotton candy. You don't blow it up with a blow dryer. You blow it up with, a B-O-M-B. Don says he woke up and saw these headlines. Really? You woke up and saw the headlines, and who was it? It was you, calling for the abolishing of the Electoral College. But I was responding to you when you said we need people with integrity, Lemon explained, during a handoff with host Chris Cuomo. I quote, I was responding to you when you said we want people with integrity in office, and I said, well, then we just got to blow up the whole system, right? And I said, here's what Democrats can do, and that's the danger. They can stack the court, close quote. But all of a sudden, he wakes up in the morning, and there he is. Wow. I made a bomb threat on national television. Run and tell this. I do think that we need to look at the Electoral College because I think it disenfranchises voters, both Democrats and Republicans. That's the whole idea, Don. We don't live in a mob society. We live in a republic. It tempers the popular vote. So if we have a pure democracy, and in a democracy you can end up voting for yourself a piece of the coffer, you will destroy that democracy. You'll destroy that form of government. That's why a republic works. It works because we have 50 states, Don. 50 states. And the issue is not all those states have a lot of people living in them. South Dakota, New Mexico, Arkansas, South Carolina. These states deserve to be heard as well. And if you do away with the Electoral College, you only have to win 4 states. That's it. 4 states gives you the popular vote. Do you think people in Oklahoma would ever hear a presidential speech? You think they would ever see a commercial or an ad or a debate? Hell no. There'd be no need for any of that because Oklahoma doesn't count. Iowa, forget about it. Your primary is meaningless because you don't have enough electors. Hawaii, 3 electors? Give me a freaking break. Florida, barely 15 electors, barely. You want New York, you want California, you want Illinois, you want Texas. You win those states, you win the country. Why? No electoral college. Talk about disenfranchising people, Don. What you're saying is that with a half a dozen coastal cities, you rule. That's not disenfranchising anybody. That enfranchises the electors of South Dakota, North Dakota, of New Hampshire, of Rhode Island. It enfranchises those voters. So he says, should it be abolished? It's not for me to say. I'm saying this is what Democrats are saying. Stack the courts, get rid of the Electoral College, but there's no nuances and no context anymore. So who cares? Now, some leading Democrats, including Senator Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have called for abolishing the Electoral College. Of course they have, because they're losers. Because they're losers. The only people that they can convince that they need to be president are the people in the big cities. The rest of the country is flyover country. The rest of the country can shop at Amazon for all they care. They don't care about you at all. All they need you for is for taxes. And Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden's running mate, you know, the anchor baby from India, or is it Jamaica, or is it Canada? Hard to tell anymore. Anyway, she was born to non-citizens in California, left the state when she was 8 and went to Canada with her mother who had divorced her father. She was raised in Canada, went to school in Canada, and only left Canada to come back to California to go to college and law school, where she graduated, and evidently she had specific talents for which Willie Brown thought she was eminently qualified. He put her under the desk, and the next thing you know, she had a nice, cushy job making $72,000 a year, and she only had to come to work 1 day a month. Not bad, not bad. She shoehorned her way into district attorney, and when she ran for Senate, she ran against nobody. She ran completely unopposed. The woman has never won a fair election in her life, and she's not even a natural-born American citizen. Oh, well. On Monday night, Lemon declared that we're going to have to blow the entire system up, and in my mind, that's a bomb threat. If I made that statement anywhere, at work, if I made that statement in class, in college, I would either be arrested or fired or kicked out of school. And I think Don Lemon needs to be removed from TV. That is a bomb threat. You know, there are people that listen to you, Don. You may have an audience as big as mine or maybe bigger. Maybe. But you can't make bomb threats on public TV. You just can't. People might act on it. That's just not safe. It's just not safe to do that stuff, okay? By the way, I think I may have removed the piano music behind this video. So if this background is silent, please let me know in the chat room. If you can hear piano music for this background, please let me know, okay? Because I can't hear it. It's not going to play for me, but it should be silent. Very nice 4K images of a flyby of Jupiter. I just wanted to see. Is it okay? Is it nice and quiet, or can you hear piano? I'll watch the chat room just for a second. So if Joe Biden wins, Democrats can stack the courts, and they can do that amendment, and they can get it passed. Maybe, because you know it takes 2/3 of the states to initiate it. and it takes 3/4 of the states to ratify it. Amending the Constitution's pretty hard. That's what it would take to get rid of the Electoral College. Not saying it couldn't be done, but lots of conversations going on in the chat room, just trying to keep up with them so I don't miss a good question if it's out there. So what's going to happen? It's kind of interesting to watch desperation in action. As I said, it's not enough to win for the Democrats. All others must lose. And so they're opening up all the stops. They're taking every possible chance that they can to win. And one of them, as you know, there are all kinds of sources of money out there. And one of the things that has been missing from the last 3.5 years of Donald Trump's presidency is the I word. I don't mean interest. I mean inflation. Inflation hasn't been there. Do you know what industry is booming and has been booming all the way through Operation Corona Fear, Corona Scare? You know what it is? It's housing. Housing. You would have thought when whoever it is who picked up the phone and shut down the entire world for Operation Corona Scare, that the housing market would have fallen flat on its butt. But it didn't. I had friends that sold their house for $450,000 well into the market, well into this, like May or June, sold their house, moved to Idaho, bought another house, and guess what's going? Lowe's is going, Home Depot is going, 84 Lumber is going. They're all supplying lumber, and the realtors are mopping it up because with all the new homes being built, the old homes are being sold. The move-ups are moving into those houses. The move-ups are moving into those houses. People out of apartments are going into starter homes. The entire market has been blowing and going. If you're a real estate agent and you're not making money right now, you need to call me because you need some training. Because there's money to be made in the real estate market. It's an indicator. It's an indicator, okay? But what's missing? Inflation. Inflation is missing. So over the past decade, half a decade at least, one common theme, despite the political upheaval and growing social and all this, Operation Corona Scare and the geopolitical instability with war and then not war and then trade and not trade, and was that the market just kept marching higher and the Fed would continue injecting liquidity into the system. That's the one theme. The second common theme is that despite sparking unprecedented asset price inflation, prices as measured across the broader economy, which uses the CPI index, you can't really go by it all the time, but it measures the money supply and the value of money related to gold. And also, don't forget the stagnant worker wages, that people hadn't had a raise in 10 years until Donald Trump came along, that it would remain subdued, that inflation would, not really, that the economy would stay subdued, and it didn't. So the Feds wanted to reach a certain inflation target, which prompted the U.S. Central Bank to radically overhaul its monetary dogma last month and unveil this. Oh, thank you very much. I did get a contribution. I don't know if it showed up in the chat alert. Did anybody see the alert when Boo made her contribution via Top Chat? Did you see the alert? I had it covered up with my notes. I would just like to know. I might go out of studio mode just to see that. I don't know. It's cool. Just you work all this time on an alert and the coding and everything and the overlay that it takes to make it work, and you just want it to work. But I didn't get a chance to see it, so you have to give me a warning that you're going to do that, and then I'll watch for it. Let's see. I'm going to put my Pluto flyby up. This is pretty cool too. Very high resolution flyby of the planet Pluto. Yes, the planet Pluto. I said it. There, I said it. So anyway, flexible average inflation targeting is called FATE. And this is where the Fed will allow inflation to run hot without hiking rates. Did it happen? No, it's not there. I've not seen it. Well, I have to go back and code some more because it is there. It's written in the code. It should have popped up, but it didn't pop up. I didn't see it. There's a subscriber alert. And I have written in that alert also a top chat alert. When somebody makes a contribution, it's supposed to say, pop up there, Leanne made a contribution of $5,000. Oh, I'm sorry, $5. I just off by a few zeros. It's okay. Just give me a break. And all of that money goes into a separate account. We don't use it yet. We're just waiting until it builds up enough where we can take a major step toward the North Pole Inner Earth expedition. If we get there, we'll make a move. If we don't, it'll just sit in the account and grow. And we got till September, October of 2021, a little over a year from now, to get enough money to make a major move. But oh, you did see it? My life is complete. I can die now. How about that? Thank you very much. That's very cool. I'm glad. So my alert worked. It's a little tricky to do the code, but I got it to work. Okay. Okay, Mona. You can listen by phone, I think. There's a way to do it. You have to go to TuneIn and pull up Revolution Radio, Studio A, and you should be able to listen. And there's a $20 top chat. Review J.A. jury trial. Okay. I'll do that. Julian Assange. I am interested in the case, and I think he should be pardoned. He's no longer a threat anyway. And we're sending the wrong message if we put reporters in prison because of the things that they report. Truth is truth, okay? Truth is truth. In short, ever since the Fed launched what's called quantitative easing, which is basically taking helicopter money and dumping it into the markets. But unfortunately, that money doesn't go to Main Street. It's not like they fly the helicopter over Main Street and drop money. What they do is they drop it into the capital markets, and it hits way, way, way downstream. Not to you guys, but it doesn't make it to you, okay? And typically, it gets dumped into foreign money markets. That's what happens to it. It shores up the dollar. It makes the dollar strong. And it's a good thing in the sense that you can buy stuff overseas, but it's a bad thing in that nobody else can buy. Nobody else can become a buyer because stuff's too expensive because the dollar is so strong. And so it hurts farmers and people like that with quantitative easing, but it keeps the dollar strong. It's a tactical move. Anyway, keeping recently accepted that its preferred stimulus pathway has failed to boost the broader economy because we're actually adding value instead of dollars to the economy, the blame has fallen on how monetary policy is intermediated. Specifically, the way the Fed creates excess reserves, which end up at commercial banks instead of trickling all the way down to you. You never see this in the roundy round, I call it. So if you earn $20 and you go down to the knick-knack market or the sidewalk cafe and you spend that money, it goes into their cash drawer. And then it makes it into their deposit, which then takes and pays their wages to their workers, which then gets respent in the economy, the local economy. Even if they buy from U.S. Foods or from, Cisco or something like that to get food to prepare to feed their patrons, the money still stays fairly local, and it will make upwards of 14 roundy rounds. It'll go around the economy about 14 times, and little bits of that dollar will be taken off each time in markups and, losses and larceny and different things like that. But it's generally a good way to make the economy strong locally. Now, there are a couple losses that occur that we don't really take into consideration, but except on this program because I scientifically analyze it. One is where a foreign national, a foreign citizen who's not a legal citizen in our country, they live and breathe cash. They don't have debit cards. They don't have bank accounts. They don't have loans. Everything they do is cash. They pay their rent in cash, their light bill in cash. They buy their groceries in cash. They mow grass and cut hair and wash dishes. It's all for cash. The issue is that a portion of that cash is then siphoned off, put in an envelope, and exported out the country. We'll call it a remittance. Sometimes it goes out in the form of Western Union, and sometimes they just zip it up in a baggie, drop it into a FedEx envelope, and off it goes to Honduras or Nicaragua or Mexico or El Salvador. And that money never makes another round in Main Street. It disappears. You might as well have gone down the freeway, cracked the window, and slipped it right out the window. Or worse, put it into a paper shredder and chopped it up into little bits. Because it's gone. It's gone out of the economy. Now you think, yeah, but what's a dishwasher going to export? And not that much. It's $500 billion a year. Yeah, because there's 25 million of them here in this country. And a lot of them send money back home. 25 million people, right? Sending $20 a year is 500 million bucks. And it's more than that. They send more than that. It's difficult to track. So the trouble is it can't make the round. It doesn't stimulate the economy. The economy begins to form a scab. It is no longer viable tissue. It's not a living organism anymore. Yes, I'm going to get to that, MG. I'm talking about cryptocurrency in just a minute. We're getting there. So this is a problem. We have what's called extraction happening in our economy. So now, to be sure, in the aftermath of Operation Corona Scare, the Fed has tried to short-circuit this process. And in conjunction with the Treasury, it has launched what we typically call helicopter money. Instead of dropping it into the capital markets, way up at the commercial bank end of the stream, they quite literally fly over Main Street and drop it right into town. Now, this makes a big difference. In the facility where I'm working right now, we have about 1,300 employees. Most of those employees, the vast majority of them, qualified for the stimulus money that was sent out before. We call that helicopter money. It was dropped directly into their bank accounts. It didn't go through the capital accounts. It didn't go to the commercial banks. It went right to them. And what did they do? They bought cars. They bought clothes. They bought flat screen TVs. They stimulated the economy at the Main Street level. And a lot of that money went around and around and around in the community, and it served a purpose. It created lots of jobs. It created lots and lots of value, because it wasn't just $600 a week. It was $600 times 14, right? Because the 600 went around and became someone else's 600, and then it became someone else's 600 and someone else's 600, and we had a revolving benefit inside the community. So $600, okay, became $8,400. It was a big, big difference. Now, yet the lament is that even as the economy was desperately in need of this massive liquidity tsunami, we call it helicopter money, the funds created by the Fed and the Treasury, now that the U.S. operates under a quasi-MMT regime, it did not make their way to those who need them most, end consumers. It did. I think it did. But it went primarily to people who were working. And there were a lot of people that weren't working, but not like there was before. So it's why we read with great interest a Bloomberg interview with two former Fed officials, Simon Potter, who led the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's market groups, and Julia Coronado, who spent 8 years as an economist for the Fed's Board of Governors. And these are among the innovators, the brainstorm solutions, right, to what emerged as the most crucial and difficult problem facing the Fed. Get money quickly, like within hours or days, to people who need it most in a crisis. The response was quite striking. The two propose creating a monetary tool that they call recession insurance bonds, which draw on some of the advances in digital payments, which will be wired instantly to Americans. In a sense, these bonds are cryptocurrency, spendable cryptocurrency, okay? Now, as Coronado explains the details, Congress would grant the Federal Reserve an additional tool for providing the support, say a percent of the GDP in a lump sum, and if we produce more, then there's more to give. If we produce less, there's less to give, but it's linked to the GDP. Recession insurance bonds would be zero coupon securities, a contingent asset of households that would basically lie in wait. It's a way of preventing the money supply from collapsing. The crash of 1929 occurred because the money supply collapsed. And it didn't just collapse in the capital markets. It collapsed on Main Street. And what happened was people went to the bank and said, give me my money that I got in there. Well, the banks didn't have it because they were margined. That means that they had gambled more of their money than they should have. Now we have rules in place to prevent that. They're supposed to have fixed reserves on hand at the close of each business day. And if they don't have it, they have to borrow it from the window. And nobody likes to borrow from the window. It looks bad. Point is, banks can't let the money out, so they have to keep it in reserve. So the only way to prevent a collapse in the money supply on Main Street is to put a different source of money in Main Street. Not all the time, because then you create inflation, but to prevent the bottom from falling out. And that will prevent a run on the banks and make everything much more stable. The Fed would then activate the securities and deposit the funds digitally in household apps. As Potter added, it took Congress too long to get money to people because they play politics with it, Nancy Pelosi, and it's kind of clunky, it's kind of dirty, and it's kind of, too much arguing going on, and everybody has their hands out. Yeah, but I want you to fund my Democrat cities, and they didn't want to do that, so the money gets tied up. We need a separate infrastructure. The Fed could buy the bonds quickly without going to the private market, and on March 15th, they could have said interest rates now 0. They're activating X amount of the bonds, and it'll be tracking the unemployment rate. If it increases above the level, they'll buy more. The bonds will be on the asset side of the Fed's balance sheet, and the digital dollars in people's accounts will be on the liability side. And that's the way it should work. That's really supply side economics on the basic level, not doing it high up like for GM and Boeing and all these, GE companies that don't need it, which is what Obama did. When he put that $23.5 billion out there in stimulus funds, it didn't go to any small businesses. It went to huge corporations like Navistar and Halliburton. Nobody saw any of it. It was all just to pay off massive donors to his party. We're going to take a quick break. We should hear the music here in about a minute and a half. And then we'll take that break, give my voice about a 3-minute rest, and right after that, we'll come back and do another hour. And I've got more stuff to cover, so we don't have to go too much more into this financial side. Suffice it to say that they have found a way to go around the stickiness and hands-outedness and politics of Congress, and they're going to use the Fed and the Treasury, which are now a little more linked together than they were. And I can explain that if you want me to. Just ask me to in the chat room, and I'll explain it. But then we'll be right back after this. So don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
We're an anarcho-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a two-thirds majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look. It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning, warning.
We gotta stop them. They're gonna kill us all.
See how the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me.
Revolution Radio. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right. We appreciate you hanging out for the first hour. This is the final hour of America Free Radio on the Revolution Radio Network on freedomslips.com. We're so grateful to be part of this network. And as you go out there and look at the streaming services that are out there, they're all consolidated in one place, TalkStream Live. Everybody goes out that way. Blaze goes out, Fox goes out. This network, Revolution Radio with freedomslips.com, competes with those other networks, and we are very highly ranked, okay? And America Free Radio is very highly ranked on this network, and that is because of you. I try my best to give what content I can and what news and analysis I can and make a good look on the video media, following the lead of many others that have gone before me and are currently out there right now putting out good content. But it's you, the people that share this with your friends. You're the ones that share this on your social media and get it out there and get it exposed. And we're streaming now on 6 different platforms to try to reach all that market. The Facebook market, the Twitter market, the Twitch market, the DLive market, and the YouTube market. And it's difficult to do. But, we have no control over that whatsoever. All we can do is the very best we can do. The very, very best sound, the very best work, the very best analysis, preparation. But it's you. It's you, the listener, hitting that like button, subscribing, sharing with your friends. And that's what makes it great. Want to let you know about a couple of events coming up next month. We have the Portal to Ascension. Now, this is an interesting one because it's 50 of the best speakers in the world. Okay? 14 MCs, multiple panels. More panels are being added. That says 3 here, 4, but there are more panels than that. And it extends over 5 days. But the best part is, Earth Explorers, it's free. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything to drop in. And all you have to do is head on over to the web address on this banner. I'm going to put the link right down here in the bottom in my description, and you can access it that way. It's free. So I'm going to be on Thursday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and so it's a good time for you to be part of it. Also, want to let you know, I spoke to the organizers yesterday, and Contact in the Desert for 2021 is on. Now, 2020 obviously got canceled because of Operation Corona Scare. But I spoke to the organizers yesterday, and 2021 is on. Now, this is going to be a little bit different than in years past. You realize this is the biggest UFO disclosure conference on the planet. It's the biggest one in the world. Last year, it was allowed to go as big as it could go. We had over 8,000 people there. And I will tell you right now that it was a little crowded. When I went to speak in the room that I was presenting in, we filled all the chairs. We filled all the rows. We filled across the back. We had to open the door and let people pack in from the hallway. And then we had to close the door because, of course, it was a paid event. And you pay in advance for a ticket, and then you drop your ticket in the envelope as you come in the room. It was too big. We had too many people in the room. So this next year, instead of being in a room that only holds 300, we're going to be in a room that holds 1,200. It's called the Crystal Ballroom. It's enormous, and it is going to be a great event. Doug, thank you so much for that contribution. He says, I heard on Shiny Side Out chat that Mike Ringley passed over. Oh, how about that? Well, I have a feeling when people that have been in this genre and they put everything out that they have. My old friend, he was a physicist for a long, long time, and then he got into the speaking field. Stanford, he just was a fantastic individual, a great guy, and he actually died, had a heart attack, and passed over in the airport coming back from a speaking event. So he's doing what he loved doing. And I have lots of friends that are older than me, maybe not as good a shape as I am, but they're older than me, and we're all doing what we love doing. So I don't feel sad about that, and my heart doesn't break for that. It's just the next phase of their existence, and I celebrate their life and all the legacy that they left behind. So my hat's off to Mike Ringley. You did a fantastic job, my friend, and we're happy that you've been around. Let's see here. Propaganda is the number one enemy of the state. Always will be, MG. It's been that way since Roman times. People that control the media, control the print, people that could read in those days, but now it's the tech giants, it's the fake stream news. But they don't control everything. They don't control here. They don't control this network. And so we're able to get the truth out, and you're able to come and listen to it. And then you're able to tell your friends and defend yourself at work and with your family. And hopefully you do it with love, and it goes out there, and we can change hearts and change minds and save the world. The point I'm trying to make with Contact in the Desert is we're putting this ad up a little bit early. If you go to my website and click on the upcoming events, you can buy tickets at a discount, but this event is going to sell out. Okay? That means it's not going to be open-ended. We're not going to put so many people in that we can't have a great time with everybody. So this one is going to sell out. Probably we're going to cap it somewhere around 7,000 or 8,000 people, because if we don't, it's going to be, people are going to like overdose on it because they haven't had an event for a year and they've saved up all this money and now they want to go and they want to see it. But that's great. But we can't take 10 or 12,000 people at this resort. It just won't hold it. Palm Springs wasn't made for events that size. So it will sell out. That's why I'm saying get your tickets early. You can put your deposit in and grow it from there and just become part of Contact in the Desert. It's a great event. We really, really have a lot of fun out there, and I want to see you there. All right. Let's see here. Let me go to this here, and we will carry on. Somebody brought up Julian Assange in the chat room, and I wanted to address that. Yes, there are 11 states. William brings up a good point. There are 11 states that have already signed up for cheat by mail. Hawaii has gone full cheat by mail. You can't vote in person. You can't vote early. The only thing you can do is wait for your ballot to arrive in the mail, fill it out, sign it, and send it back. Signatures still have to match. That's the law. However, we have been talking about counterfeiting ballots here. Not here, but here we have been talking about counterfeiting ballots from foreign countries. And Iran and China were at the top of our list. And we had said that once the roster of candidates is known, what will happen is those ballots are going to be printed. They're going to be pre-voted, baby, and they're going to be shipped directly to the precinct. People that have never voted before, and you say, well, how would you know that? I don't have to know it. Because you'll recall that China hacked Equifax in 2018. When they hacked Equifax, they got 75 million working Americans' information. 75 million. That's enough to swing an election big time. But guess what else they got? Oh, yeah, they got your credit information. They know where you work. They know how you voted. They know if you voted ever. And if you've never voted, but you're registered to vote, guess what they're going to do for you? They're going to vote your ballot for you. Oh, and they're going to sign it too because they have your signature. It's all going to be done. It's all going to be shipped. And they might even get caught. And that may be the whole idea. If they can throw this election into enough controversy that it cannot be certified, they think they can keep Donald Trump out of the White House. They think they can. But you recall, once that gets into that realm of chaos where no winner can be determined, say January 3rd or January 20th, then the 20th Amendment kicks in. And I reminded you of that. I reminded the administration of that, and they mentioned that. But the one thing everybody passes over with this, yeah, it could be the Speaker of the House that becomes the acting president. In the Constitution, it says that Congress gets to select the president if one cannot be determined. But remember this, it's not the whole of Congress. It's not 438 congressmen, that the majority of which is run by Democrats. Nope. It's one vote per state. One vote per state, which will probably be designated by the governor. The governor will send one delegate, or 10 delegates, or 100 delegates, but they only get one vote. And they send them to the convention, or they send them to Congress to vote. Fortunately for Donald Trump, there are 26 Republican-controlled states, probably 27 if you count a couple of governors that vote with Donald Trump. That means that the Democrats lose again. Every single tactic that they're picking, it results in a loss for them. Now you think, oh boy, that means that President Trump's still going to be president. Yes, but it also means that the war goes on. And when the war goes on, the risk goes on. And the risks become very, very big because war is only over when the loser surrenders. Can I see, by a show of hands, how many of you think the global syndicate will ever surrender? Exactly. Which means the weapons get more terrible. The threats get worse. First, they're going to threaten impeachment. Then they're going to threaten to blow everything up. Then they're going to threaten to, use the military to remove President Trump from the White House. The threats will continue to get worse. Will masks be required at this event? Yes, most definitely masks will be required at the event, because it's so dangerous out there. And people don't want their pictures taken participating in this skullduggery. That's a great word, isn't it? Skullduggery. U.S. President Donald Trump was aware of and had approved of U.S. Congressman Dana Rohrabacher and Mr. Charles Johnson meeting with Julian Assange in order to secure the source of the DNC leaks in exchange for some sort of pardon assurance or agreement, which both would benefit President Trump politically and prevent a U.S. indictment against and extradition of Mr. Assange. The assertions were read into open court on behalf of Barrister Jennifer Robinson, who was present at the meeting in the Ecuadorian embassy on the 15th of August, way back in 2015. This was before any indictment was issued, and it was before everything got to this point where Assange's health is now in question, and before all of the truth actually shook out, before Seth Rich's murder. And Mr. Assange faces up to 175 years in prison if he's convicted on all the charges in the U.S. The charges almost entirely relate to his role in publishing the Iraq and Afghanistan war logs, Guantanamo Bay detainee files, and the diplomatic cables which revealed war crimes and other criminality and abuse committed by the U.S. government and U.S.-backed forces. As I said before, most of the information, not all of it, but most of the information implicated wrongdoing by American generals and NGOs, non-government organizations. There were other bad things going on in the world, and he could have reported on those as well, but he did not. So, on the other hand, pardoning him, I think, is the better part of valor, because he's not going to live a tremendous amount of time now. He's been in torture. He's been deprived of human contact, and he's been deprived of his life. He's had to live with his decisions of solitary confinement. And maybe it's an example to other reporters. Maybe you shouldn't, publish that private communique. It is news and it is truth, but it's probably going to end you in living in a consulate somewhere in South America, or in London that's owned by South America, to keep yourself from being extradited to the U.S. So yeah, all this stuff is real. I would like to see him pardoned, just because I think truth is truth. And if you did the crime, it is worse than having somebody tell or reveal that you did the crime. You don't want to punish the person that reveals you did the crime. You want to punish the person that actually did the crime. I'm the same way, Julesy. I wear my mask down around my chin. In fact, I went to Lowe's one time and they wanted me to wear a mask, so I strapped it over the top of my cap, this way, over the top and on my ears, and walked around. Of course, I was thrown out of a place in Mount Shasta for not wearing it over my nose and mouth. Not physically thrown out, but I was told I had to leave if I didn't pull it up over my nose. And I said, well, I choose oxygen, and I left. I think it was better for him. And it was probably better for me as well. Sorry, these 17-hour days do get to me sometimes. All right, China is on the moon now for 7 years. Very quiet, very quiet. We do follow it, but I don't keep you posted, so I thought I would do it today. China has a lunar spacecraft operating on both the near and far sides of the moon, according to an update from the China National Space Administration. The Chang'e 3 moon mission, which includes a lunar lander and a small rover, it set down on Mare Imbrium back in December of 2013, 7 years ago, to make China only the third country to soft land on the moon. The Indians tried it since, but it was a rather hard landing and it splatted. It didn't survive. And though the rover bit the lunar dust after 31 months on the surface, the mission lander, guess what? Still operational. It's still there, 2,400 days after landing. The Lunar Exploration and Space Program Center was very proud of this in their news release. One science payload, the Lunar Ultraviolet Telescope, it obviously looks out into space from the moon. It's understood to still be working. Yes, it's still operating. The automatic instrument has been monitoring variable stars and even returned an image of the Pinwheel Galaxy. Radio astronomers have confirmed Chang'e's activity by periodically picking up signals from the lander. It sends out radio signals. The solar-powered spacecraft operates during the lunar daytime, which lasts about 14 Earth days, and it communicates via X and S band with ground stations in China, at Kashi in the northwest and Jiamusi in the northeast. The lander is kept warm during the harsh cold of lunar nights by a radioisotope heater unit, which more than likely is probably plutonium. Plutonium operates at a temperature of about 1,236 degrees C. It's a steady decay. It can last for up to 80 years. That's the half-life, so it's going to decay steadily toward then. But at 1,236 degrees C, what they do is they surround it with what are called thermoelectronics. And what these do is they're like a thermocouple, but they take that temperature, that energy that's put out by the plutonium, and they make electricity straight from the heat. And it works. So it keeps itself warm and stays operating, and it will sit there on the moon powered by its little plutonium battery for a long, long time. The lunar rover, which is named Yutu, like Y-U-T-U, not you also, it translates to jade rabbit. Okay? It lost the ability to actually rove around about a little over a year after it landed. Near the end of the mission's second lunar day, after traveling a total of 377 feet across the lunar surface, at the time, China's state news outlet Xinhua reported that Yutu had experienced a mechanical control abnormality caused by the complicated lunar surface environment. Yutu's mission was designated to last just 3 months, but it surprised everybody by lasting over a year. It actually functioned stationary, not driving around, but its electronics and everything functioned until mid-2016. Not bad, considering how harsh the surface of the moon is. During its mission, U2 set a new record for operating on the lunar surface longer than any other moon rover. U2 continues to make contributions long after its death, with new science results still coming from the data collected by the rover. Researchers from the China University of Geosciences and other institutes recently discovered evidence of 3 relatively young layers of basalt, or volcanic rock, at the Chang'e 3's landing site, and published their findings August 17th of this year in the journal Geophysical Research Letters. Previous studies suggested the region formed from a single thick lava flow long time ago, but still fairly recent by Earth standards. The findings are based on data from U2's ground-penetrating radar, which, by the way, I was the original inventor of. which picks up reflected signals from the electromagnetic pulses to provide insights into the lunar subsurface down to about 3,000 feet. That's about as far as it will go. And you can't tell the depth. You can only tell the presence of it with one antenna. It takes two antennas. That's the way my invention works. And you can triangulate between these, and you can verify, depending on the scope or the footprint of the antenna. So if you use a set of elements where you can really focus that antenna down to a small area, you can get it to within about a meter down to 3,000 feet. Pretty good, pretty good. And by the way, one of the easiest things to discover with this is the difference between substrata. So if you're going from basalt to, say, iron or aluminum or even open air, it's very easy to see that interface with the antenna. With experience and empirical data, that is to say, if you were actually to drill a hole there and take the cuttings, say every 20 feet, and analyze those cuttings down to 3,000 feet, then you could verify exactly what those signals indicate, and then you could use that to map the substrata of the moon. Yes, I would be willing to do it, but you'd have to get me there and get my crew there and get my equipment there, and then I could tell you. So now the Chang'e 4 starts at lunar day number 22. Not been there very long. On the far side of the moon, China's Chang'e 4 mission, a successor to Chang'e 3, is well into its 22nd lunar day, which began about 10 days ago. Like Chang'e 3, Chang'e 4's mission includes a lander and a rover, which is named U22, like YUTU, number 2, not you also. After snoozing through the lunar night with no sunlight to power its solar panels, the rover woke up, resumed activities on September 10th at 11:54 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, with the lander following at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. U22, which was driven 1,704 feet across the vast von Karman crater, will continue its progress to the northwest of the lander in the direction of a basaltic region of interest to scientists. Chang'e 4 was initially manufactured as a backup to Chang'e 3, and it made its first ever soft landing on the far side of the moon, January of 2019. Team from the Aerospace Information Research Institute, Chinese Academy of Sciences, have determined the age of the nearby Finsen crater to be about 3.5 billion years, which is almost exactly what we predicted. The team used digital mapping data from Chang'e 2, the lunar probe that orbited the moon for 8 months. It took high-res pictures all the way around. We got lots and lots of data from that once all the strips were stitched together. They counted the craters and the ground-penetrating radar readings taken by U22 to analyze regolith growth in the von Karman crater to calculate its age. Pretty good empirical methods, I must say. I like when science like that comes together, and I like even more when science comes down to that and validates theories that we had before. It's kind of crazy when it invalidates theories we had before, because then everything's up in the air. We either doubt the data or we doubt the theories, and somebody loses. So it's better when it validates the theories, because then everybody feels good about it, everybody gets behind it, and you get more grant money. Right. All right. Also in the news, something that has just occurred. In fact, you're probably just hearing about it today in the news if they are willing to play it. It's a little risky to play it. I'll tell you why in a second. You know little Mike, right? Bloomberg? Yeah, that Mike, the guy who invested in a little organization called Pueblo Sin Frontera. You know what that means? It means country without border. It is an organization that funded the mass migration of citizens of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala to walk almost 2,000 miles on foot with nothing but their cell phones and their clothes on their back all the way through Mexico to throw their bodies against Donald Trump's southern wall, to create a humanitarian crisis that the UN was eager to film. And, of course, the fake stream news was willing to turn into the greatest humanitarian crisis of our day. You think it was just spontaneous. You think it was just like, hey, it's ahora, let's go, vámonos. And so they just suddenly decided to take off, break fences down, walk through Mexico, women sustaining rape, sexual assault, all kinds of physical violence to get all the way to... No, they were under orders. They were being paid. Now we get to see if the law is going to work for all equally. You will recall that Dinesh D'Souza was sentenced to prison by Obama for loaning money to a person who made a contribution to President Trump's campaign. Now, Representative Matt Gaetz has called for a criminal investigation into little Mike Bloomberg, who paid off $20 million in debt for more than 31,000 convicted felons in Florida so that they can vote in November. Florida has a law that says if you're a convicted felon and you pay your monetary indebtedness to society, some of these people owed 20, 30, 40,000 bucks, some of them, to the state. Of course, you're going to pay that off by either working in the system, making license plates, so to speak, or some other commodity, or after you get out and you get your change of clothes and $25 in cash, and you get your job, then you have to work and you have to repay that money to the state while you're on probation. Yeah, and if you stop paying, you miss a payment, guess what? You go right back into jail. That's not good. So during that period, however, you can't vote. You're not allowed to vote. Thank you for the generous contribution. Kush, a ghost of our hippo character, floats in front of the words game over. Yeah, it could. I think the word loser pops up when Michael Bloomberg hits the game floor. Little Mike is worth about $50 billion. Yeah, he controls the Bloomberg boards, which is where people post articles and you can license those articles to use in your own report. Like Bloomberg says, Bloomberg reports. But that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. Little Mike. He is one of the media moguls. One of the media moguls. There's only 3 of them now, and he's one of them. He spent $20 million to pay off these fines, the court fees, restitution fees for felons, and he pledged another $100 million to help Joe Biden win Florida. The issue is that the prior is illegal. You cannot buy votes. It is not legal. Matt says, I believe there may be a criminal investigation already underway of the Bloomberg-connected activities in Florida. And I think so, too. He went on to say that he had already contacted Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody, a Republican, to urge her to investigate whether the scheme violates Florida law. I can guarantee you that it does. I will quote, under Florida law, it is a third-degree felony for someone to either directly or indirectly provide something of value, money, to impact whether or not someone votes. So the question is whether or not paying off someone's fines and legal obligations counts as something of value. Clearly, it does. If little Mike was offering to pay off, say, people's student loans, I think he did that. Or credit card debt. I think so. You would obviously see the value in that, yes? When you improve someone's net worth by eliminating their financial liabilities, that is something of value. Normally, it would be very difficult to prove that was directly linked to impacting whether or not someone was going to vote. But they literally wrote this in their own admission. Yeah, they did. According to the Washington Post, Little Mike wrote in a memo about the scheme, and I quote, "We have identified a significant vote share that requires a nominal investment," close quote. Duh. I think you're busted, Little Mike. The data shows that in Florida, black voters are a unique universe unlike any other voting bloc, where the Democrat support rate tends to be 90 to 95%. Gaetz said in a separate interview with Fox News Network host Lou Dobbs, and I quote, "This is a specific inducement to a specific segment of voters to get them to vote in a certain way, and I think it should be a crime." Avro Lancaster, thank you so much for that generous donation. Ranked number 1 in my book, Love My Wednesday Nights Live. Thank you so much. America Free Radio loves you very much. And that's what I'm talking about. These are the people that make America Free Radio great. I try to dig up the very best stories. I try to find the actual facts on it. I try to say them in the best way that I can. I let you watch me while I'm doing it, which, by the way, was pioneered by none other than Rush Limbaugh. Maybe some of you are not old enough to remember the Ditto Cam. You remember the Ditto Cam? It was back when bandwidth wasn't really what it is today, not even close. But Rush Limbaugh said, I've been doing this since the late 80s, and I control AM radio. I mean, he resurrected AM radio by himself. He has a great voice, but he has a great mind, and he has a great political intellect and analysis, which a lot of us emulate. And he decided that it would be valuable if he showed off his studio, his EIB, excellence in broadcasting studio, and let people watch him among wafts of premium cigars in the last hour, giving his news and giving his analysis. And he was right, a pioneer again. So Rush Limbaugh was the original podcaster. In fact, really, by all rights, this should be called rushcasting, not podcasting. Rushcasting. He's the one that invented it. We're just following in his footsteps. We're trying to do it better. We're trying to put twists and value added to it, so that maybe, just maybe, we can expand that contact. Many of you can't listen from noon to 3 o'clock because you're working. I do too. Every once in a while, I go out to lunch, take a walk around the parking lot or outside the plant, put my phone on tune in, put my earbuds in, and I listen to Rush for half an hour while I'm walking. Is it enough? No, but it's something. It's something. This you can do. We're out at 8 p.m. on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Sunday nights. This you can do. We don't conflict with anything here on this time slot. That's why I chose it. I don't conflict with Rush. I don't conflict with Coast to Coast AM. I'm in between them. So it appears that Little Mike is trying to buy votes in Florida. He put it in writing, and he should go to jail. He should serve at least 8 months, because that's what Dinesh D'Souza served. Anyway, the move comes just days after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis won a court victory to keep felons from voting until they've paid off their fines. A federal appellate court ruled on September 11th that in addition to serving their sentences, Florida felons have to pay off all the fines, and then they get their right to vote. The case could have broad implications for November's election, because Florida has 29 electoral college votes that are crucial to President Trump, and a very small number of votes usually determines who wins Florida. And 31,000 extra votes is 31,000 extra votes, especially when you've bought and paid for them, and you can count on them for your candidate. Under Amendment 4, which Florida voters passed overwhelmingly in 2018, felons who have completed their sentences would have voting rights restored. Republican lawmakers then moved to define what it actually means to complete that sentence. Not just the time, but also the fine. In addition to prison time served, they have to pay the financial obligations. Florida Rights Restitution Coalition has raised about $5 million before Bloomberg made calls to raise almost $17 million more. The money is targeted for felons who registered to vote while the law was in question and who owe $1,500 or less. They want as many voters as they can get for as little as they can spend. The accounts for almost 31,000 people are going to be paid off. These 31,000 people are going to make a big difference because in that state, it was decided in the 2000 election, you recall the hanging Chad election, only 537 votes. 537. That could be critical in a year when polls show Trump and Biden are in a dead heat, if you believe the polls. Organizers for the group say they weren't targeting people registered with a particular political party. Yeah, right. To hell with politics, to hell with any other implications or insinuations. We were just trying to do the right thing for real people, American citizens who want to be part of this. I'm not buying it. People with felony convictions have had their voices silenced for too long, said Desmond Meade, the group's executive director. The group said other donors included, let's see, John Legend, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, MTV Comedy Central, VH1, Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, good old Levi Strauss & Company. Remember, they dropped their support for the Boy Scouts of America, and I dropped my jeans. Yeah, I did. No more Levi's for me or my family. The Miami Dolphins, the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, and, of course, good old Steven Spielberg. So those are the supporters, those are the donors, and I believe they all, every single one of them, including LeBron James, should go to jail for conspiring to buy American votes. Also confirmed, as I mentioned earlier in the program, counterfeit ballots. You will recall that last month I brought your attention to my suspicion that China and Iran would be printing counterfeit ballots. I brought it up on this program. I know now for sure that President Trump's staff listens to this program because I said these U.S. ballots will probably be pre-voted and signed. Since the Equifax hack in 2018, this became a reality, and now my suspicion has been confirmed by the administration. As the 2020 presidential race between President Donald Trump and sleepy China Joe Biden heats up, Attorney General William Barr warned of the potential of substantial fraud in cheat by mail, but he omitted necessary context, and states that rely on the process say there's little evidence of such activity. But the two are very far apart in reality. Okay? Here's a look at the claims that were made today. Barr on fraud in the cheat by mail process. He said elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. Close quote. The facts, according to CNN, multiple studies have debunked the notion of pervasive voter fraud in general and in the vote by mail process. They're very careful here because what they're talking about is fraud in the absentee ballot process. That, by and large, has been worked out. As much as the voter rolls have been purged of dead people and people over 100 and all that stuff. It doesn't happen that way in every single state, but in states where absentee ballots make up the bulk of the votes, like in, say, Washington State, where most of the voters vote by absentee ballot. In that case, what happens is the resident that is a voter writes the state, they write their precinct and say, I, Jane Doe, want to vote, so send me a ballot. And then they package a ballot and they send it to her household. She opens the ballot, goes through, either, says I'm going to vote straight Republican or straight Democrat, whatever it is, signs it, gets a cross signature, someone living in her household or someone that knows her close by that's also a citizen, signs it, seals it, puts stamps on it if it's required by the state, and mails it back. And it goes right back to the precinct that sent it to her. So that's 2 forms of validation. They sent the ballot out. They got the ballot back. They matched the signature with the previous year. Yep, that's Jane. That's her signature. And her vote now counts. Sort of. In states where absentee ballots are used exclusively, they're all counted as they come in. Or on election day. In states where they're not the primary method of voting, where voting in person, either early and election day, the absentee ballots that are sent out are quantified. For instance, let's say the state sends out 30,000 absentee ballots. That's a pretty high number, but let's say they sent out 30,000 absentee ballots. The election's held, and on election night, the winner wins by 64,000 votes. They're going to certify the election without counting the absentee ballots because it's not going to make a difference. It won't, even if all the votes went for the loser, it wouldn't be enough for him to win. So they're going to certify that election as soon as possible. And then over subsequent weeks, a couple of weeks later, a month later, whatever, they're going to count those absentee ballots and they're going to give them to the candidates that they belong to, and they will then amend or finalize their totals. Everyone in the state's vote will count. But those absentee ballots don't make a difference in the election. What they're trying to do here is they're trying to hijack that verbiage and say that simply mailing ballots out without having the voter actually request the ballot. In other words, we're going to push the ballots out to everybody that's registered, even if they never voted before, even if they're not even eligible to vote. In other words, they're a citizen of a foreign country. They're not a citizen of this country, but they're registered to vote because they got a driver's license and we have a motor voter system, and so they get a ballot. That's a whole bunch more ballots. Instead of 30,000, you may be talking about 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 ballots. 3-4 million ballots being sent out. You understand? In the state of North Carolina, it would be something like 14 million votes going out. That's a lot of ballots. I haven't got mine. It's not probably going to happen in North Carolina, but some states like Hawaii, it's 100% cheat by mail. Everybody that can fog them here that has a driver's license and will answer their mail at that address for that driver's license, they're going to get a ballot. Now here's the problem, Earth Explorers. Somebody's going to vote that ballot, whether they are a citizen or not. And in many cases, in a lot of cases, multiple ballots are sent to the same person. I'm asserting that they're going to go a step further, that those ballots aren't going to come from the precinct at all. They're going to come from China. They're going to come from Iran. They're going to come from Bloomberg. They're going to have them printed as an extra governmental service. And they're going to be sent to people, and they're going to look real, they're going to smell real, and they're going to fill them out and vote them as though they're real. That's the problem. That's why these facts, multiple studies have been done debunking the notion. Not so, not true, because we've never had push balloting before, ever. And it's something you cannot implement in a single voting year. It's something that must be implemented over several elections with very tight monitoring. The 5 states that relied on absentee ballots before Operation Corona Scare, which are Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington State, and Utah, they have said they have necessary safeguards in place to ensure against fraud. But that's mailed out ballots by request. That's not pushed. The Attorney General cited a report from more than a decade ago from a commission led by former President Jimmy Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker that said cheat by mail was vulnerable to fraud, especially when there's ballot harvesting, especially when there are people on the ground that are voting these ballots, handling these ballots, everybody except for the voter. The commission pointed out in a statement in May that it had found little evidence of fraud in states like Oregon that had sufficient safeguards because they've been doing it for a decade. Okay? They've already been doing it. They've already worked out those issues. But these other 11 states that have suddenly switched to cheat by mail in a key presidential election, big problem, big problem. Barr also said he was basing it on logic. His concern that a hostile foreign actor, China, could produce bogus ballots for the election. Counterfeit ballots, exactly what I said on this program. Okay? And you're not going to have facts yet, because a fact is a direct observation. This is a suspicion. And I think there is a chance they could get away with it, but there's an even bigger chance they're going to get caught for it. And that may be part of the plan as well. Get the cheat by mail system busted so that people don't trust it. They don't see a value in it. Maybe a shipping container of ballots caught in Long Beach Harbor or in the port of Louisiana or in New York. They open up this shipping container and bam, there's 2.5 million ballots that were printed in Shanghai. And they're all pre-voted. Names, signatures, votes, everything all in place, all stamped and ready to go to the precinct. They'll just drop in like, ballots are us. Suddenly, oh, wow, look here. 2.5 million votes for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for president. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Everyone would know, well, that's fake. How can you have these ballots show up voted in a shipping container in New York? It's fake. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Now what happens? All of a sudden, the FBI is deployed and all the voting is shut down. This is going to require a major investigation. Schumer will say, this has never happened before. I call for full, comprehensive investigation. We're going to have hearings right away. Of course they will. Of course they will investigate. And the hearings will go on and on and on. And in the meantime, President Trump doesn't get 270 electoral votes. We can't agree to this. We can't agree to this. Look at this. Hawaii and Illinois and Florida and Alabama and all these states are all flooded with these counterfeit ballots. We can't tell the difference between a real one and a fake one. We're going to have this election all over again. You see, you missed the January 20th deadline. That may be the whole reason it's happening in the first place. That's what I'm saying. So this is how it happens. And the reason that I make such a case out of this is that when I think of possibilities like this is because I've had like a vision of it. I've seen it happen. And, I do failure mode effects analysis for a living. This is what I do, is project failure modes into the system and put what we call poka-yokes. A poka-yoke is Japanese. It basically means we make it so you cannot do it wrong, okay? It is impossible to do wrong. We put a fixture in place, a gate in place, a separate kind of what we call level 1 detection, electronic detection. It's too long, it's too short, it's too light, it's too heavy, it's too dark, it's too warped. All of these things that we can do electronically to verify and validate and repeat that measurement. That's what we should do with ballots as well. And yes, I agree that the crypto voting that was patented by the U.S. Post Office recently, it's a great idea. But it's too late, Earth Explorers. In 4 years, it's a good idea. Even 2 years, it's a good idea. We could probably implement it by then. You can't implement it in 42 days. 43 days. You can't do it. All right. The debates. I'm laughing. I call this article "To Hear or Not to Hear." Are you ready for 60 days of grandstanding and name-calling and lies? Just play back about 5 minutes of the Kavanaugh hearing and you let me know, okay, if you can take some more of that. Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee should proceed directly to a vote on President Trump's forthcoming Supreme Court nominee without bothering to hold the confirmation hearing. Don't give the Democrats the satisfaction of pulling another Kavanaugh. Rush Limbaugh said today, we've obviously got the votes, so what's the point of the hearing? We don't need to open this up so that whoever the nominee is can be Borked or can be Kavanaugh or Clarence Thomas. I mean, come on, people. The Rush Limbaugh stated that the Constitution does not require a committee hearing to move a nominee forward. All it says is that the Senate must offer advice and consent. So, consent already. You have the majority. You know the candidate. You know the nominee. Go ahead and appoint. Don't do this grandstanding. Don't give them 5 minutes at a time, a maximum of 30 hours, which you know if they only do it 6 hours a day, it's going to last for 5 days at least, and it's going to be splattered all over the press. These are the people that impeached a president in an election year. They slimed. They lied about Justice Kavanaugh. They put Christine Ballsy Ford up there to lie. And she made millions of dollars on her 19 different GoFundMe accounts doing it. Okay? This is who they are. We've always seen them do this. We know what they do. We know what they're capable of. And we, the American people, don't need to see it again. So, Mitt Romney surprised everybody by saying that he would vote to confirm, and that puts it as a shoo-in. So just put her up. All those in favor say aye. Done. Done. And let them cry. Let them scream. And just say 2 words back to them. Harry Reid. That's all you have to do. End of story. Which time do I have? Press my clock here. I have 2 minutes. I want you to pay close attention to the debates that happen, because watch for the Biden bot. Have you ever been to a trade show and watched a spokesmodel? Okay, I introduced some new technology called box score at the 1997 CMM show in Chicago. It was revolutionary, but it was a big hit, not because I was up there in front of everyone answering questions. It was the spokesmodel. She was gorgeous, and she was wired through a small earpiece to a recording that she repeated, and she had control over the speed of the speech, but with a button in her pocket, ran up inside her suit to her ears. She told all about the boxcar with amazing detail, like she invented it, but she didn't. I did. Now, I'm convinced that Biden has an earpiece, not maybe in his ear like this, okay? Now, it's not one Trump could see, but it's one that a trained observer could detect. Go back and look at some of the answers that he's given. You ever wonder why Biden wears a mask outside, far away from people when he speaks or answers controlled questions from members of the press? Because it's to cover the look of terror on his brainless face when he takes the stage. There are a few feet of video that show him without the mask, before and after. The calming voice comes over the speaker in his ear or attached to a bone inside his head here, begins to speak through him through this tiny, bone implant that puts the sounds clearly and quietly in his head. I suspect it. And if I do, then it means that now I have said it. The Trump team knows. It's wireless by radio to connect the Biden bot to the voice answering the questions for him. And it can be jammed. In fact, it can be hijacked with new words being fed to Biden in his otherwise lifeless jaws. You want to see the look of Biden's face when the voice goes silent? How about when the wrong words come out of the voice and thus out of his mouth? Oh yeah, me too. Sit close so you can enjoy it. Well, I have a question for Mr. Trump. Can you mamu dogface in the banana patch? Enough said. See you next Sunday right here on America Free Radio.